G'day, I'm Tim Thompson. This week I'm in Glenpatrick in Victoria with Tim Curtis, who runs just over 1,500 acres of crossbred self-replacing sheep. He's revolutionised the way he's thinking about his fences. Rather than thinking about keeping his stock in, he's thinking about keeping other animals out. We're going to go and meet Tim now and talk about the change that way of thinking has given to his business and his profitability. Then we're going to have a look at some of his earlier attempts and now what he's come up with as good solutions for exclusion fencing. Tim, how are you, mate?
Very good, Tim. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good.
Thank you very much for having us out here today.
Pleasure.
I'm really keen to see these new fences that you've put up around your borders because they've really made a change to your business.
I think so, yeah. I think we have to develop other ways to make our business better and stronger.
Yep.
And by doing that, we have to keep vermin out, as in kangaroos or whatever it may be, just to increase our numbers.
Yep.
As we were talking before, you know, it's about our productivity. And if we can increase our numbers by, say, a third to a quarter, something like that, it's got to work.
And so by changing your fences and doing it, what I love about this is you've been doing it really economically. By changing your fences economically and in a smart way and being very strategic, you've increased your flock numbers quite substantially.
I think so, yeah. We can increase it by, say, 300 head just by keeping our kangaroos out.
So on 1,500 acres, you've gone up 300 head.
Yeah. So I mean that in short terms, that's 80 grand to us.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good.
It starts paying for the fences
pretty
quick,
yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mate, I'd love to see some of your early fencing efforts, and I'd love to have a bit more of a chat to you about what your sort of theory is on keeping the kangaroos out, how that's actually good for them.
Yes.
And good for you.
Righto.
And good for the neighbours. So let's go and have a look at some of those fences.
We'll do that.
We went off to have a look at 3 different variations of exclusion fence that Tim played with when he took over what was left of the family farm. He quickly realised that kangaroo population was a limiting factor to his productivity. He then also realised through experimenting with these fences that roos will go under a fence, then through a fence, and if they can't do those two things, over a fence, which is a bit counterintuitive to what most people think. Well, Tim, this is the first type of fence that you came up with, and it was really just playing around with the idea of taking your fences up higher to begin with, wasn't it?
Pretty much so. Yeah.
So
had an existing sheep fence underneath again.
9 metre spacings.
9 metre
posts.
Yep. Which is probably too far. We worked that out pretty well straight away. We did the wrong thing by putting our posts too far apart.
And that was plain wire, wasn't it?
It was originally, yeah.
Yep,
plain wire.
Yeah.
So we put cyclone on there, but we worked out, as I say, it was too far apart, so we ended up with a lot of pressure underneath, so we had to put 2 barbed wires
so
down the bottom.
These boys here.
Yep.
And that was purely on the outside of the fence to stop the roos from going under.
Pushing under.
So you've got a reasonable trampoline here, even with a 9 metre spacing, just with using these steel extenders that you've welded together. Now I notice that you've just welded one post on top of another.
Yep.
You've used your existing posts.
Yep.
And you've had to use the old posts because the new posts won't weld.
That's
low
correct.
Carbon.
That's correct.
So you've got enough height now to stop the roos here, and the first thing you noticed was they were going underneath.
Yeah, well, as I say, we're very new to the game and all the rest of it, and roos will always go under if they can.
Yeah.
And so we had to run 2 barbs out here to try and deter them, and that works most of the time.
Okay.
But I'd suggest maybe closer spacings with your.
Yeah, when you're going up, what sort of spacing do you reckon's ideal now?
On a boundary fence, I think 4 metres.
Yep.
You need to make it rock solid. Just to cut down the maintenance on what you're trying to do on your run around of a fence.
Yep.
That's my theory anyway.
Yeah. Now I notice you've got the wire on the inside, even though it's stopping roos from the outside. And people always, there's a lot of comments about where you should have your wire on a fence, but at the end of the day, it's got to work, doesn't it? You had to roll this out.
And it's not much fun rolling out on the roadside when you're full of sticks and trees and bits and pieces, so it just made sense to me just roll it out there and hope it was going to work.
And it
does.
did.
It does work, yeah.
Now Tim, end assemblies when we're going up, you've also had a couple of designs that you've gone through. This looks pretty specky. Can you tell me, this was your first design? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
It's probably a bit of an overkill what we know now about it. We're just trying to use the existing, what we have, wooden post, putting something behind it. So we used an angle.
Yep.
A 3-inch angle.
So that's this one here. So
That's
you had
the
a
one.
3-inch angle.
Yep.
And that bent a bit.
Well, I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
But it did not. In previous ones we've done, or later ones we've done, it has not. So we put a stay on there. As I say, a bit of an overkill, but
yeah,
it looks good.
It looks amazing.
But it creates a whole lot more work when you don't need to.
And you were having to cut those stays to length, then take them back to the shed, weld them up.
Yeah.
Cut into the existing post, screw your bracket in. That's hours of work.
There's a lot of mucking around going on. And so we did away with all that in our later efforts.
Yep.
And just use the angle by itself, and we find that's fine.
So when we put up the fence later on, we're just going to use some basic angle on the end of the post, and that should do the trick.
That's all it needs.
Alright, so Tim, this is the second type of exclusion fence that you've built. Once again you've had your standard sheet mesh down the bottom and you've extended it. Can you talk us through a little bit about what you did?
Pretty much we only had wooden posts every 9 metres here, and so we've gone in between those with a raised steel post.
And once again we've got these steel posts that have been welded together because you couldn't get the long steel posts. You ordered them and they never came.
Just had to make up what all we had. And anyway, ended up getting these out of a vineyard as a trellis post.
Okay.
And using these. But we're once again using whatever we've got. And we had some plain wire.
Yep. Once again from a vineyard.
From a vineyard. They're good to me. Yeah.
No, all these people build vineyards and donate all the stuff to you. Yeah, that's good.
So and this is probably our highest impact zone through here. So we've had to strengthen it up with droppers and all sort of stuff on top because it just gets hammered so hard through here with roos.
And you've got deer as well. So people that are having trouble with deer, you can say categorically this is really working well.
It's probably 90% with the deer, I reckon. 80-90%. They will jump this.
Okay.
They are pretty persistent animals.
Yeah.
But the kangaroos, we don't see a roo on this side. I haven't seen one here for years.
Yeah.
They just don't enter now.
Okay. Oh, that's terrific. And down the bottom here, are you running your barb, or are you didn't get up to that yet?
Not on this one, because we've got our measure is back to probably 4s, 3.5 4s. Mm-hmm. And we probably didn't think of it back then either.
Yep.
Whereas all our current ones have
new fences have barbs.
You work it as you go along.
Yeah.
But we haven't had any under pressure.
Okay.
No, it's worked pretty well.
And you've got a fair whack of forest up there.
Got a lot of forest. That's the Pyrenees Ranges through there.
So that goes back quite a few K.
Oh yeah, there's thousands of acres in there of just bush.
Yeah. So the kangaroos sort of find their own balance in that environment. They come here, they realise they can't get through. Problem solved.
They pretty much had no choice now.
Because you're putting fertiliser and everything out here.
Yep.
If they did come in here, numbers would go boom.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it was nothing to see 40, 50 roos on this side of the fence before this went up. And that's that's 30 sheep.
Yeah, 30 sheep a year.
Yep, pretty much. Every roo is half a sheep, so that's about what I say.
Just coming back down here a little bit, you've got some plastic droppers as well. So you've just extended your wooden posts with some plastic droppers.
Just once again, whatever we had lying around.
So that's not
not super rigid.
Not super rigid, but it's enough. It's a trampoline.
It is. I don't like that push effect, that bouncy effect.
Yeah.
I'll hit it and bounce back off.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas the bottom part of your fence needs to be pretty much rock solid.
Okay, all right. Let's go and see stage 3.
Righto.
As we went up some of the steeper sections of Tim's property, the logic behind his switch to all steel post fences became clearer and clearer. They're far more transportable than a tractor with a post rammer and wooden posts could ever be in this sort of country. And you might be saying to yourself, well, it's fantastic that Tim's doing all this exclusion fencing, but what about the gates? Won't the roos and the deer just move to the gates and jump over them? Well, it turns out Tim has a solution for that too. What he does is he goes to the local steel supplier and orders some pieces of bent tube. Then he simply drills a hole in them and bolts them to the gate. You've now got an exclusion gate for very little money. He's a smart man, this Tim. Alright, so Tim, this is now the third design that you came up with. This is a 40-acre leased block that you've got on a roadway. And you're once again trying to reuse everything that was existing on the farm, because obviously inputs cost a lot of money and you've got to measure them. Can you take us through a little bit about why you've welded two steel posts together? What was the story behind that?
Trying to find an attachment to go on the top of those to raise your steel post to a roo height or an extended height was pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Almost non-existent. Try and find something that was suitable at a cost.
Unless you buy a whole new post.
A whole new post, and that was not the answer.
No.
So we had these old steels. Lucky they were old because the new ones don't weld.
So you can't do this even with new posts?
No. So anyway, we did that and obviously painted them up because they looked pretty ordinary rusty.
Yep.
And it's done the job beautifully.
And you've got, once again, recycled vineyard wire on the top, on the roadway.
Correct.
But over on this side over here, you've gone to the expense of buying some mesh, and that's because you've been studying and watching the animals that you're trying to keep out, and you found that this side needed mesh.
That side needed a bit more security, I guess, because it's a higher impact zone.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more traffic goes through there with roos because it borders the bush.
Yep.
Whereas this one's facing the road.
So they will come up on the roadside and they will graze a bit, but there's not the pressure to try and get in.
Not quite as much, no.
Whereas over there, they're really desperate.
It's a pretty intense sort of area through there with roos and deer.
Okay. So that's going to give you more of a trampoline.
Yep.
And it's not going to separate if they try and really run at the wire.
They certainly did for a start. When it was first put up, they tested it out to its limit.
Yeah.
Had to come back a few times and straighten it out. But it's calmed down now.
But are you getting roos and deer in the paddock now?
I didn't see a roo this morning.
Beautiful. I love your corner post here. It was concreted in. You've got to solve problems, don't you?
Oh.
When you're farming, you've got to solve problems.
There's always something just to annoy you, I suppose.
Yeah.
Had a concreted one in here, and it's pretty hard to deal with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just make up something as we go along.
And even if it's a rock, it works.
Whatever. It's as I say, it's a lease block, so you really don't want to be involving too much money on someone else's property.
Yeah.
So it works. It looks pretty rough, maybe.
It looks great.
But it does the job.
Well, Tim, I think I might have a solution for your extension of steel posts, and it might save you a bit of labour.
I'm in for that.
You're in for that?
Absolutely.
As long as it's strong enough, yeah?
Strong enough and high enough, I'm all for it.
All right. Well, we might have a version 4 then. What do you reckon? Let's go set a fence up?
Let's check it out.
Sounds good to me. All right, mate. So now it was time for me to earn my keep and give Tim and his wife Janine a hand putting up some fences on some of the steeper sections of one of their blocks. For this task, we had some great new products that I was keen to put in front of Tim and get his opinion on whether or not they solved some of the problems that he's been facing with extending his standard fences and making them exclusion. All right, Tim, so this is the moment of truth. We're going to run out our mesh to protect your high pressure zone. Whites have kicked in and they have donated to you some stiff stave. Have you ever used this before?
I have on a 7 line.
Okay.
I do like it.
Yeah, it's not a bad product, is it?
It's good.
They can actually mix up the wires, so they can put high tensile wires through it. They're not, because of this machine, they're not sort of set to the standard patterns that you had with the old hinge joint. Mm-hmm. So this one here, they've got a 900 high fence, and then you'll see that there's actually a hinge joint skirt at the bottom, and you've got another 300 mil of skirt that'll actually lay flat on the ground. So that should take care of those young roos.
That should do. Because
you're saying that it's the young ones particularly that you've got to worry about, because they're the ones that are going to come in more often.
Young roos and their mothers are the worst offenders.
Yep.
If the young roos can't get through, the other roos won't worry about it. You'll always get the big roos.
Yep.
But you'll always get no matter what.
So the top of the fence is for the big roos?
Yes.
Because they're going to try it out?
It's more of a sight thing, and it's a bit flexible.
Yep.
They treat it like a trampoline. They don't like it. They don't
Yeah.
like that movement in fences. So they'll respect it.
And you're of the opinion that kangaroos can be trained?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
So smarter than we give them credit.
Well, it's like putting out a fence in the middle of summer and expecting to learn. They're not going to learn. They want that. They want
Yes.
the green feed. Whereas you put it up in the autumn or when there's less activity going on.
Which is exactly now.
Right now, you'll train those roos and they'll behave themselves pretty well.
Yeah, right. And they won't breed up, I suppose, early spring, and you won't have that pressure of needing to feed as much either.
If they've got less tucker on that side of the fence, the bush side, they're less prone to breed up as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Because it's not available to them. So
All right. So this skirt should help keep out the young ones.
yes,
The older ones won't follow. And then we're going to use our pickaxe extensions to make use of the old posts. We'll save a bit of money. Good
Absolutely.
business sense.
Sounds great.
All right, let's get into it.
Righto.
It's all very well being able to have 13 line wires in your stiff stake, but then you've got to tie them onto the post. This is my worst part of the whole job, tying it off. I will see you in about half an hour. If you want to know how I tie these off and do the termination knot, click on the link above. Otherwise, yeah, this will take a while. Eventually I stopped whinging and got to work, and we set the fence up in no time at all, really. Alright Tim, so we've got the whites 13 line wire netting with skirt set up, and we've still got the problem that this is an old-fashioned fence. It's designed, for some reason people always thought of fences as keeping animals in, but
true.
You've completely changed your business model by thinking about keeping animals out. Well, I've got this little gadget here. I know we were talking the other day and you were saying you couldn't get a solution for extending steel posts. You've been using old ones to weld on, but the new steel posts don't have enough carbon, so the welds don't hold. You've been out to the local suppliers, you can't find anything suitable. There's a bloke in New South Wales called Ian Lowry who runs a company called Wireman, and he's come up with this little picket extension here. You can actually put a wire clip through there and it holds it in place. We run out the wires and that'll give you a nice solid 6-foot post.
That seems like my answer.
Let's go and run them out and see what we think of the
Let's do
result. It was amazing how fast this exclusion fence could be put on top of the existing fence line. While I finished off putting the extensions on, Tim started running out the exclusion wire using the Walters Blue spinner, and it was done in a jiffy. So Tim, we've got our first wire out and we're going to start going up, but you were saying you're going to use some barb as well, and I'm intrigued about where you're going to be putting the barb and why, because everything with you has a reason.
Well, I'll try and explain it. I think the more protection you give in that jump zone for young roos,
Yep.
because if they can't get under, they want to go, probably not straight to the top, but they
Yep.
want to push through like a cow does. So probably in there, and that also protects the main integrity of fence.
Yep.
Is your cyclone.
So you don't put barb right up the top. There's no point.
Well, it causes animal discomfort for one. I'm not
Yep.
into that.
Yep. Good.
Because you see roos upside down hanging there for days, and that's not what we want to
It's
do.
just not cricket, is it?
So all this is about is educating not to jump. So it's more of a cider wire.
Yep.
And if it acts as a trampoline, great.
But you're actually after the roo that comes up to the fence.
Yep.
And pushes its head through to try and get through.
They'll want to get through.
It's going to touch its nose on the barb, and
Yep.
it's going to say no, thank you.
Exactly. That's the only barb we'll use.
You're going shopping.
I'm going shopping with a little dolly cart.
Well, Tim, here's maybe version 4 of the exclusion fence. We've got our lovely skirted whites netting on the bottom, and then you're running your plain wires with your pickaxe extensions on the existing steel posts and making the best of what you already have without spending too much money. What do you reckon, mate?
It seems like a good answer, and a lot less work that I've been doing in the past. I wish I had known about it earlier.
Well, I suppose the next step, mate, if you're looking for even more performance out of your fence, would be to electrify some parts of it. And I know there are systems out there that do that. I'm looking at one in the next couple of weeks. But that's not something that you're looking at this stage. This is working for you.
At this stage, this will work for me.
Yep.
Electricity's not my cup of tea.
Yep.
But maybe, who knows?
Yeah. I'll be keen to have a look at what they're doing up north, because I know they're running a lot of electric exclusions. So that's on the menu, folks. And in the meantime, we'd like to thank Whites for supplying the wire here today, and Wireman for the pickaxe extensions. And I think we've come up with an even better design that might help you into the future, Tim. So
Thank you.
yeah. No, great stuff. Thank you, mate. Appreciate you spending the time. The job went so smoothly setting up that new fence that we had a few hours left in the day. So, using these great tools to speed us on our way, it was only an hour or so and we had the next lot of fence, which didn't have to be installed, just extended, put up. Combining the pickaxe extensions with good quality wire and great tools made this job a really pleasurable experience, and we got much more done than we'd anticipated. Don't forget, guys, if you like this video, please do hit the like and subscribe buttons and check out great content on timthompson.ag. All there is to do now is sit back and admire the roos view of this greatly improved new exclusion fence.